The courtroom buzzed with the quiet anticipation of a typical day's proceedings. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, casting elongated shadows across the polished wooden benches. A noticeable air of authority hung over the room, with the judge seated high above everyone else, exuding an aura that demanded respect. The sound of a gavel echoed sharply as the judge called the session to order, momentarily silencing the murmurs that filled the space. In one corner, a Filipina maid, Maria, sat nervously on the defendant's chair. She was dressed simply yet neatly, wearing a modest blouse and skirt that contrasted sharply with the tailored suits of the attorneys at the opposite table. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap, fingers trembling slightly as she awaited what she hoped would be a fair hearing. Yet it was hard to ignore the feeling of trepidation that lingered in her chest. She knew the prejudices surrounding her profession. Across from her, the opposing counsel, surrounded by a team of well-dressed lawyers, appeared confident and prepared to argue their case. They had carefully crafted their strategies, seemingly underestimating Maria's worth based solely on her appearance and occupation. The dynamics in the room were palpable. A stark division between perceived affluence and humble beginnings played out in real time. The case revolved around alleged negligence on the part of Maria during her employment at one of the city's most prestigious hotels. The charges sounded serious and threatening, but Maria felt an inner strength rising within her. She had poured her heart into her work and had always taken pride in maintaining high standards. Yet prevailing stereotypes threatened to undermine her dignity before anyone even heard her side of the story. As the proceedings unfolded, the judge, a middle-aged man with a stern countenance, sat back in his chair, eyeing Maria with a mix of disbelief and condescension. His initial perceptions seemed shaped by entrenched social hierarchies. He had seen many cases like this before, wealthy establishments seeking to defend their reputations against what they deemed as frivolous claims from employees perceived as less sophisticated. "Do you really expect us to believe that a maid could manage such complex responsibilities?" he remarked during preliminary questioning, his tone laced with skepticism. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Some observers shared disapproving glances while others appeared amused by his dismissive attitude. Maria's heart sank at his words. She understood all too well that many judges often viewed cases involving domestic workers through a biased lens. The implications were painfully clear. In his eyes, she was merely an employee, insignificant and unworthy of respect or consideration. Despite this dismissal, Maria remained composed. She caught sight of her reflection in a nearby window, the determination in her eyes contrasting sharply with the vulnerabilities she felt deep within. Memories flooded back of long hours spent working tirelessly at the hotel, putting everything she had into her job while raising enough money to support family back home. This was not merely about defending herself. It was about validating her identity and challenging preconceived notions. As witnesses began to take the stand, it became evident that the narrative woven around Maria would paint a skewed picture of who she truly was. One witness narrated events suggesting negligence on Maria's part, oblivious to her commitment and hard work. The judge nodded along. His body language reinforced his skepticism about someone from Maria's background having substantial authority or expertise. Yet fate has its own way of turning tables. As each testimony unfolded, little did anyone know just how drastically perceptions would shift once new information came to light. A revelation that would shake this courtroom's foundational beliefs and challenge ingrained biases surrounding class and status. In this moment of tension and foreboding atmosphere, Maria clung tightly to hope amid uncertainty. The world outside may have already labeled her an underdog, but she had dreams larger than life itself, dreams worth fighting for. Her story was far from over. It was merely beginning to gain traction amidst a backdrop of gross misjudgments rooted in socioeconomic disparity and prejudice. Ultimately, as both sides prepared for further arguments, it was clear that perhaps today would not end as initially expected. Each participant in this judicial drama would soon discover that appearances can be deceiving, and that sometimes an unexpected twist can rewrite one's narrative entirely. As the trial progressed, the intricate dance of stereotypes and biases became increasingly apparent. The atmosphere in the courtroom seemed to thicken with a palpable tension, where each word exchanged seemed to hold layers of meaning dictated by preconceived notions about class and occupation. Judge Harris's demeanor starkly illustrated this undercurrent. His dismissive tone, laced with condescension, echoed unwarranted judgments about Maria's capabilities and status. In affluent households, domestic workers like Maria often faced an uphill battle against pervasive stereotypes. They are frequently viewed as mere extensions of the wealthy families they serve, an invisible, inconsequential presence whose contributions are often overlooked. Such biases can diminish their identity, reducing them to simplistic caricatures rather than recognizing their skills and potential for leadership. The implications of these stereotypes extend far beyond the walls of the courtroom. They shape societal perceptions and influence how individuals categorize others based on outward appearances alone. Judge Harris had been presiding over similar cases for years, most of which involved employees from lower socioeconomic backgrounds battling powerful employers. It was clear that his previous experiences colored his judgment in this case. To him, Maria was not only a maid, she epitomized everything he had associated with those in servitude, unrefined and lacking the sophistication or intelligence required to manage complex situations. At one point during cross-examination, the judge remarked, "Your job is to serve food and clean rooms, not to make critical decisions about hotel operations." The statement hung in the air, stinging like a slap across Maria's dignity. Several courtroom observers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They sensed the weight of prejudice behind his words. The notion that someone working in such a manual position could possess insights or perhaps even run an establishment was an uncomfortable thought for those favoring a rigid class hierarchy. These same prejudices were echoed by opposing counsel as well. With slick arguments crafted to undermine Maria's credibility, they seized every opportunity to frame her as incompetent without ever digging deeper into her true capabilities or intentions. They portrayed her as a childlike figure, a stereotype entangled in cultural assumptions designed to delegitimize her voice. The interplay of statements made it evident that in their eyes, domestic workers were not meant to transcend their roles or challenge societal expectations. The media backdrop further exacerbated these stereotypes. Reports often focused on narratives that highlighted Maria's background, a desperate immigrant seeking work, while downplaying any references to her hard work and ambition outside of servitude. Headlines framed her plight through a lens steeped in sensationalism rather than justice, creating a barrier against empathy while reinforcing existing biases. In contrast to this narrative oppression were moments when Maria's resilience shined through the din of judgment surrounding her. Despite the judge's skepticism and opposing lawyers' derision, she approached each question with grace and candor shaped by years of experience within various roles at the hotel. Her knowledge of operations ran deep. She didn't just carry bags but managed inventory, trained other staff members, and implemented customer service practices that enhanced guest experiences. Yet these contributions remained invisible amid both systematic discrimination and rampant stereotypes dictated by class status. For many present in the courtroom, whether knowingly or unknowingly, Maria represented an incongruity. She didn't fit neatly into their narratives about who belonged in positions of authority and resilience because they struggled to see the nuances that come with lived experience. As distinct individuals within this socio-political microcosm began rallying around Maria's story, not merely as a defense against negligence but more importantly as a symbol against outdated perceptions, it became clear that challenges related to prejudice were morphing more broadly than anticipated. What transpired within those walls was not merely about one woman fighting for justice. It also unveiled an essential discussion regarding societal perceptions layering privilege against marginalized voices clamoring for recognition. Amidst this tumultuous terrain of existing biases came arrears synonymous with fortitude. Hearts began opening toward understanding moments where assumptions could be dismantled brick by brick. And so it emerged that although Maria initially entered this arena battling accusations alone, she ultimately stood on fertile ground ripe for growth. The sheer possibility that once exposed could heal long-seated prejudiced roots marring human connection within society at large remained glimmering on the horizon. And as revelations continued unfolding within the tense bastion of justice known as courtrooms everywhere, they would inevitably extend threads beyond familiar bounds towards larger transformations expected into public discourse surrounding labor identity inherently grounded beyond discretion shaped by uniform stigma alone. The tension in the courtroom reached a boiling point as the trial unfolded, with Judge Harris's skepticism hanging heavy in the air. Maria, who had patiently endured the scorn of the judge and opposing counsel, prepared herself for what she hoped would be an opportunity to assert her truth. The day had dragged on with witness after witness providing testimony that painted a narrow-minded picture of her role within the hotel, but beneath her calm exterior lay a determination that threatened to shift the entire narrative. As the morning session drew to a close, one of Maria's allies, a longtime friend and former colleague named Lisa, took the stand. Lisa was poised and confident, ready to testify about Maria's hard work ethic and leadership skills at the hotel. As she recounted stories of late nights and early mornings spent alongside Maria, the courtroom gradually shifted its focus from skepticism to intrigue. Lisa spoke eloquently of how Maria had trained many staff members and had overseen operations with remarkable dedication, details slowly casting doubt on the opposing counsel's characterization of her. However, just as Lisa was about to wrap up her testimony, an unexpected commotion erupted outside the courtroom door. A group of well-dressed individuals entered, the owners of several high-profile establishments in town, including those who held stakes in hotels that were direct competitors of Maria. It was an unanticipated intrusion, their well-timed arrival hinting at something significant yet undisclosed. Lisa paused mid-sentence as they shuffled into their seats near the front. Their presence added an air of curiosity to an already charged atmosphere. Glancing towards them briefly, she seemed momentarily distracted but quickly regained focus as she urged everyone to consider Maria not just as a maid but as someone who exemplified resilience against all odds. Then came that pivotal moment, a moment when the tide began to turn unbeknownst to anyone present. Judge Harris leaned forward slightly in his chair while regarding Lisa with skeptical eyes. "And what makes you so sure your friend here possesses any real authority over hotel operations?" he asked, his tone still laced with condescension. But before Lisa could answer, another figure stepped boldly into view, a middle-aged woman with sharp features and an aura of authority, Maria's lawyer, Clara. She stood tall before the judge, well aware of her surroundings and clearly ready to unleash what had remained unsaid until this very moment. Clara gestured expansively toward Maria, seated quietly at her table. "Your Honor," Clara began firmly, "I'd like to introduce you formally not just to my client but also to someone whom you may not realize is more than meets the eye." A hush fell over the room as everyone leaned in with curiosity, unsure where this revelation would lead. "This is Maria Santos," Clara continued confidently, "and she is not merely a maid, she is in fact the owner of this hotel." Gasps rippled through those present, an audible wave spreading from one corner to another. The disbelief was palpable, it reverberated in whispers among spectators and officials alike. Judge Harris sat momentarily frozen in place as if struggling to absorb what he'd just heard. The immediate shock rendered him almost speechless. It was clear that he had been completely unaware. Maria remained composed despite being thrust into sudden light. Even amid disbelief swirling around her like a tempest, there was serenity contained within those dark eyes that told tales far deeper than simple roles associated with service jobs could convey. The courtroom dynamic shifted drastically following Clara's revelation. No longer was Maria merely an employee, but now emerged transformed into both an accomplished businesswoman and symbol of empowerment against societal constructs that often sought to belittle her identity. Judge Harris's expression changed from dismissive arrogance to one tinged with humility, as he attempted to reconcile his previous impressions with newfound facts now glistening brightly before him, like dawn breaking over night's shadows once obscuring all clarity. His usual retorts seemed lost momentarily, infinitely, completely at odds with this new image exploding forth at his feet. Opposing counsel scrambled frantically at their table, their strategies appearing dimmed under the weight of what felt like shifting sands, but they hadn't yet grasped fully how dramatically this news would reshape their case going forward. People exchanged astonished glances throughout courtroom. Murmurs concerning perceptions radically changing swept like wildfire, igniting conversations anew amongst onlookers who'd come simply thinking they would bear witness, yet now found themselves participants embroiled deeply within dynamics they hadn't initially anticipated. While just moments ago Lisa stood addressing, merely, a defendant presumed unimportant, now all questions surrounding merit came bursting forth, posing challenges neither expected nor prepared for amid deeper insights, underlying social hierarchies that required kindling recognition, ignited by fortitude above whatever labels wholly defined success prior. Maria felt a mixture of vindication among genuine smiling faces surrounding her despite challenges ahead far from its end, not merely fighting back against negligence claims alone, but working diligently towards breaking barriers while embracing abundance against stereotypes. A triumph emerging outwards, rendering truth cloaked within resilience vibrant amidst adversities, shaped through experiences cultivated under watchful eyes, made aroused anew towards genuine connections kindled beyond set confines previously held firm by limits defined largely less compassionately than her resolute spirit ever achieved. As the revelation that Maria was the owner of the hotel settled in, the atmosphere in the courtroom shifted dramatically. Judge Harris, who had previously exuded an air of condescension, now exhibited signs of visible contemplation. His usual rigid posture softened, and the skepticism etched on his face began to fade. For the first time, he seemed to grapple with the implications of what he had just learned about Maria's true identity, shifting his perspective from one of disdain to uncertainty. The judge's reaction was more than just personal surprise. It reflected a broader societal discomfort with class and economic status. In a world where certain roles were traditionally associated with power and respect, Judge Harris had, until that moment, subscribed to an unspoken hierarchy that placed Maria firmly at the bottom. The sudden shift in his understanding forced him to confront his own biases, biases that many in the courtroom shared but rarely acknowledged. As whispers filled the room and spectators exchanged bewildered glances, Judge Harris cleared his throat to regain some control over the proceedings. Ms. Santos, he began, his voice steadier now but still tinged with residual disbelief, could you elaborate on your responsibilities as the owner of this establishment? The question was loaded, not just seeking clarity, but also attempting to affirm his authority while navigating this unexpected turn of events. Maria met his gaze without hesitation. Certainly, Your Honor, I oversee all operations here from managing staff to ensuring guest satisfaction and maintaining standards that reflect our values. Her confidence radiated as she spoke, each word dismantling the last remnants of doubt that had clouded the judge's perception. Judge Harris listened intently, his brow furrowed as he absorbed her explanation. For a man accustomed to viewing employees through a narrow lens based on their roles, this new information forced him to reconsider not only Maria's capabilities, but also the very nature of success and authority within a business context. He had been quick to assign labels, to box people into categories based on preconceived notions. But now he found himself confronting the reality that such classifications were not only simplistic but damaging. The judge's change in demeanor did not go unnoticed by the opposing counsel, who hastily recalibrated their strategy. They had built their case on the assumption that Maria was insignificant, a mere maid without a voice, and now they faced an opponent who was not only competent but also formidable in her own right. The shift in dynamics created a palpable tension as they struggled to reconcile this new reality with their previous arguments. Outside the courtroom walls, news of Maria's ownership began circulating rapidly among journalists and observers, igniting discussions about class disparity and social mobility. Many were quick to recognize how entrenched stereotypes had perpetuated an unjust system that marginalized individuals based on their professions rather than their abilities or aspirations. For Judge Harris, this experience offered an opportunity for reflection, a chance to reevaluate not just how he viewed Maria but also how he approached cases involving individuals from diverse backgrounds moving forward. The reverberations of this moment extended beyond the courtroom. They signaled a potential shift in attitudes towards domestic workers and those often relegated to invisible roles within society. As questions continued to arise about Maria's qualifications and her decision-making capabilities, it became clear that perceptions were not easily altered. Yet her presence challenged everyone present, including Judge Harris, to confront their assumptions about power dynamics in professional settings. This confrontation ultimately led to deeper conversations surrounding classism and economic status prevalent throughout society. In navigating this pivotal moment, Maria emerged not merely as an individual fighting for her rights, but also as a catalyst for broader change. She embodied resilience against systemic inequalities while showcasing how ownership and identity could disrupt long-standing narratives rooted in bias. As proceedings resumed, it was evident that Judge Harris would carry this experience forward, an encounter that served as both a reckoning for him personally and a lesson for others in recognizing humanity beyond simple job titles or social stratifications. Through Maria's journey amid challenges arose opportunities for growth, not just for herself but for everyone involved, laying bare truths once concealed beneath layers of prejudice that required unearthing if genuine understanding were ever to flourish within society at large. Maria stood firm amidst uncertainty yet remained resolute, a beacon illuminating pathways toward justice while embracing complexities woven intricately through life's fabric, proving that often it is those underestimated who possess the most profound capabilities waiting patiently to be acknowledged and respected at last. Following the courtroom revelation that Maria was the owner of the hotel, media coverage exploded, quickly garnering widespread attention across various outlets. Newspapers rushed to publish sensational headlines like "Maid turns out to be hotel owner, what else do we get wrong?" and revealed the true story behind a Filipina maid's fight for dignity. Television networks covered the story extensively, with segments dissecting the implications of class, power, and identity in today's society. Social media platforms became battlegrounds for discussions polarized between outrage and support, reflecting societal divisions more pronounced than ever. Twitter erupted with hashtags such as Justice for Maria and Class Bias Exposed as users expressed their shock and disbelief. Many were quick to support Maria, sharing messages about resilience and empowerment. Maria is not just a maid, she's a fierce businesswoman breaking stereotypes. One tweet read, gaining traction and retweets at lightning speed. Others took to the platform to decry Judge Harris's earlier comments, terming them archaic and emblematic of a broader failure within the justice system to recognize individuals from all walks of life. Simultaneously, some voices criticized the situation, accusing social media users of partaking in performative outrage. They argued that Maria's ownership should have been acknowledged long before it became an unexpected plot twist. It shouldn't take a courtroom drama for us to recognize the dignity of service workers. commented one user who highlighted ongoing issues regarding how domestic labor is perceived in society. Amidst the chatter arose a deeper conversation about worker rights and employee treatment within industries that rely heavily on lower-income workers. News outlets began conducting panels featuring experts on labor rights, class disparity, and representation in the workplace. Discussions delved into questions regarding how societal structures often empower individuals based solely on their socioeconomic status rather than their merits and capabilities. Journalists revisited stories about other underrepresented groups battling similar biases across various sectors, amplifying the conversation beyond Maria's singular case, while exploring how widespread such prejudices are in different settings. As public sentiment grew increasingly supportive of Maria, numerous advocacy groups seized the opportunity to rally around her story as a catalyst for change. Campaigns demanding fair treatment for domestic workers were launched online, with call-to-action petitions gaining thousands of signatures almost overnight. Prominent unions representing service workers issued statements urging industries to assess how their practices contribute to systemic inequities. Maria's experience truly resonated with many people. Park rallies and community discussions popped up around cities championing economic equality for all workers regardless of background or profession. Storytellers from various backgrounds helped amplify Maria's narrative through art. Poetry readings celebrating her resilience spread virally across Instagram, while videos capturing her courtroom moments were shared widely on platforms like TikTok. Television talk shows invited Maria's lawyer Clara onto their programs, eager to explore the legal ramifications of this case while spotlighting real-world implications regarding labor rights. Clara eloquently expressed how this incident should serve as a wake-up call to society, a chance for reflection on enduring biases faced by those often invisible amid larger narratives. She noted that every individual deserves recognition for their skills regardless of their title. Overall public response throughout this entire journey reflected a simmering awareness that perhaps people had grown weary of ingrained systemic injustices defined almost hand-in-hand with status markers, wealthy versus poor, employer versus employee. And yet here stood Maria, not only redefining these lines but blurring them altogether as she inspired hope against societal constructs that so often demean laborers' dignity. Even months after the trial had concluded, conversations sparked by this event continued bubbling beneath society's surface. Workplace policies became scrutinized anew, reforms regarding domestic workers emerged in proposals. Perceptions around roles belonging within social hierarchies began transforming into new frameworks centered on respect and recognition. The essence of Maria's experience transcended her singular case. It served as a powerful catalyst igniting change towards building inclusive environments for all individuals seeking equity within realms they navigate day-to-day irrespective of job titles or preconceived notions defining success along predetermined avenues so often traveled merely by circumstance alone. Thus it was within waves crashing off societal shores that stories fanned flames urging transformation, compelled not by mere outrage, but creating avenues toward understanding. The likes shaped season after season, detailed among countless individuals possessing tenacity ready waiting, patiently oftentimes behind uniforms guarding greatness aching, inside just needing acknowledgement regardless labors deemed valuable. Cherished deserving profound respect always waiting upon discovery etched through destinies, yet unveiled together, alongside ambitious hearts revealing truths spanning horizons waiting serenely beckoning light, overflowing promise thriving abundantly unique perspectives defining paths reaching beyond barriers once thought formidable subsequently guiding forward journeys yearning expression, boldly illuminating through shadows encompassing transformational steps. Furbishing authenticity, unveiled shaping futures concurrently uniting diverse hopes galvanized beneath renewed strength united crafting brighter possibilities ahead, standing boldly rising unrelenting against lingering doubts resolute overnight yet timeless always poised capturing triumph true equanimity guiding onward. Whether high above hallways persisting upward throughout history's penned unrestricted journey, now illuminating trails brighter than ever forth transfixed one empowering connection paving ways. Transforming lives. A journey then comprehensive expanding navigating cultures boundless horizons embraced entirely woven intricately each life, eternally marked through transcendental bonding experienced across newfound shared legacies, anchored firmly resonating powerfully still forging epics yet timeless bound toward united purpose fully achieving integrity truly collectively unified arduous paths framed singular journeys, undertaken indomitably determining our legacies flourishing magnificently. Further illuminated through courage embraced resolutely. The eruption of discussion surrounding Maria's case brought to light significant issues related to workers' rights, particularly those of domestic workers and immigrants who often find themselves marginalized in society. As her story resonated across various platforms, it became a rallying point for advocates pushing for better treatment and recognition of laborers who have long been overlooked in conversations about employment rights and dignity. Domestic workers, a largely female and immigrant workforce, are frequently subjected to harsh working conditions, low wages, and a lack of legal protections compared to other sectors. Maria's experience was emblematic of the struggles faced by many in this field. Despite their critical contributions to households and businesses, their roles are often undervalued and stereotyped. Through Maria's journey, the inherent biases against domestic laborers were laid bare, prompting calls for systemic change. As media outlets began covering her story in greater depth, they highlighted the plight of domestic workers who toil behind the scenes, cleaning homes, caring for children, and ensuring smooth operations within hotels, yet receive little recognition or respect. This visibility offered a golden opportunity for advocacy groups to press for legislative reforms that would provide these workers with essential rights, including fair pay, benefits, and safe working conditions. Advocates argued that Maria's case should serve as a wake-up call not just for policymakers but for society at large. For too long, domestic workers have been pigeonholed into roles devoid of dignity, their labor dismissed as unskilled or unworthy of acknowledgement. The narrative surrounding Maria's ownership challenged this perception head-on and urged others to rethink how they view labor across all economic strata. The response from advocacy organizations was swift. Many groups began organizing rallies and campaigns aimed at raising awareness of workers' rights within this sector. They called attention to existing legislation that often excluded domestic workers from basic labor protections afforded to other employees. Efforts were made to push for inclusion in minimum wage laws, health benefits, and protections against harassment, issues that many domestic workers face daily but seldom have the means or support to address. A notable outcome from the heightened visibility of Maria's situation was a renewed focus on social mobility for those employed in domestic roles. Discussions erupted about pathways out of poverty that included access to education and training programs tailored specifically for domestic workers seeking upward mobility within their careers. By highlighting success stories like Maria's, where hard work and determination led to ownership, the narrative shifted from one of mere survival in low-paying jobs to one celebrating ambition and entrepreneurship among previously invisible communities. Additionally, community organizations began facilitating workshops aimed at empowering domestic workers with knowledge about their rights and avenues for recourse when those rights were violated. These initiatives emphasized the importance of self-advocacy and collective action among workers who might feel isolated or powerless in their situations. As conversations continued to evolve online and offline, it became evident that public sentiment was shifting toward greater empathy and understanding of the challenges faced by domestic workers. Social media played a pivotal role in this transformation. Platforms allowed individuals from diverse backgrounds to share personal stories of struggle and resilience that echoed Maria's experience. The use of hashtags such as domestic worker rights gained traction as advocates encouraged solidarity among all workers fighting against systemic inequities. Educational institutions also took notice, with some universities incorporating discussions about labor rights into their curricula, aiming to foster a new generation equipped with knowledge about social justice issues. This broader educational focus served not only to inform students, but also inspired them to engage actively in advocacy efforts both during their studies and beyond. Maria's case proved that individual stories could resonate widely enough to ignite movements advocating for change. The backlash against stereotypes surrounding domestic work became part of a larger dialogue about race, gender, and class in society, underscoring how interconnected these issues are when it comes to understanding labor dynamics. In light of these developments, many began recognizing the need for societal shifts that prioritize dignity across all forms of work. The call for fair treatment extended beyond just domestic roles. It encompassed all forms of labor traditionally categorized as low-skilled or less valuable, advocating instead for a reimagined framework where every worker's contributions are honored regardless of the title they hold. Ultimately, Maria's story transcended her individual struggle. It sparked a broader movement toward equity in the workplace that demanded justice not merely through legislation, but through cultural change that embraces dignity in all forms of labor. As people rallied around her journey toward empowerment, it became clear that the fight for workers' rights is intertwined with the quest for social justice, a fight that continues today, fueled by newfound awareness and solidarity among those who refuse to remain silent any longer. The unfolding of Maria's case served as a potent illustration of the class disparities and stereotypes that pervade professional environments, revealing how deeply entrenched societal biases can undermine individuals based on their perceived status. The judge's initial condescension towards Maria reflected common stereotypes associated with domestic workers, those who are often viewed as less capable or deserving of respect simply because of their roles. This incident illuminated the ongoing struggles faced by marginalized groups, particularly those in service positions, who frequently find themselves fighting not just for fair treatment, but for recognition of their essential contributions to society. Maria's story challenged long-held assumptions about who can occupy positions of authority and influence. Her unexpected revelation as the hotel owner posed a direct confrontation to the pervasive narrative that class and occupation determine one's worth. In doing so, it prompted critical questions about how society defines success and leadership across different sectors. While many may have previously reduced domestic work to menial tasks, Maria's experience showcased her business acumen, resilience, and ability to navigate complex management responsibilities, qualities often overlooked due to preconceived notions rooted in socioeconomic prejudices. The implications of this case extended far beyond Maria's individual circumstances. It sparked a broader dialogue about systemic inequality and the barriers marginalized groups face within various professional landscapes. As discussions gained momentum in media and social platforms, advocates began emphasizing the need for a fundamental reevaluation of labor dynamics that prioritize dignity across all forms of work. It became clear that a large segment of the workforce, those employed in low-wage positions, deserved better representation and support. Furthermore, this case highlighted how societal perceptions regarding class could perpetuate cycles of inequality. Domestic workers, predominantly women and immigrants, often grapple with limited access to education and career advancement opportunities due to discriminatory practices affecting their ability to seek upward mobility. The stereotypes attached to their professions contribute to an invisible wall that keeps them from being seen as equals within the larger workforce, inhibiting both personal growth and societal contributions. In light of Maria's experience becoming public knowledge, there was an awakening among many regarding the need for solidarity among workers from all backgrounds. Advocacy groups were quick to seize upon this moment as a catalyst for change within labor laws governing domestic work. This included pushing for comprehensive reforms aimed at establishing rights and protections akin to those enjoyed by other professions, a demand rooted not only in justice, but also in recognizing the value inherent in all types of labor. Educational institutions also began responding by integrating dialogues around issues faced by domestic workers into their curricula, fostering greater awareness among younger generations about class disparities and workplace dynamics. By instilling values centered on respect for all professions, educators aim to cultivate a culture that appreciates diverse contributions rather than stigmatizing specific roles based on socioeconomic status. As public discourse shifted towards empathy for marginalized communities, sparking conversations about race, gender, and economic status, it became evident that Maria's situation resonated with various facets of social injustice prevalent today. The backlash against stereotypes surrounding domestic labor grew louder. Testimonies from individuals within these fields began flooding social media platforms revealing personal stories that echoed Maria's experience, a collective chorus demanding acknowledgement and respect. What was once dismissed as women's work or labeled as low-skilled began transforming into discussions emphasizing professionalism and skill sets required in these vital roles. Such conversations illuminated pathways toward empowerment through training programs designed specifically for those seeking skills enhancement or career advancement within domestic settings. Moreover, since Maria's case ignited public interest around these issues, including legislative advocacy efforts aimed at reforming worker protections, the demand for equity transcended individual stories like hers. It morphed into something larger than any singular narrative could encapsulate. Movements emerged focused on unifying diverse voices, advocating against economic inequality, threaded seamlessly throughout various sectors demanding accountability from employers unwillingly cognizant addressing long-standing gaps between expectation versus reality. Ultimately, Maria's journey represented far more than just one woman's fight against prejudice. It encapsulated a wake-up call reverberating through different strata of society. A clarion call urging everyone involved, including policymakers, industry leaders, employers, alike toward recognizing humanity beyond job titles, while urging transformative shifts across workplaces everywhere, creating spaces resilient, built upon respect, dignity, thriving together along trajectories, uniting hopes, illuminating brighter futures, spanning boundaries, far-reaching, ever onward, inviting engagement, empowerment, always beckoning renewal through awakened consciousness, yet unfurling elegantly. poised ready shaping destinies yet unknown. As the dust settled from the heated courtroom drama surrounding Maria, it became increasingly clear that her story was not just a singular incident but a reflection of larger societal issues that merit deeper contemplation. The lessons learned from this case resonate far beyond the courtroom walls, prompting a necessary reassessment of how we view individuals based on their occupations and the biases that often accompany those perceptions. At its core, Maria's journey underscores the importance of respect for all forms of labor, regardless of their perceived value in society. The judge's initial mockery and skepticism were not merely personal failings, but rather indicative of deep-seated stereotypes that plague many professional environments. These biases perpetuate an unjust hierarchy within the workforce, where individuals are often judged by their jobs rather than their skills, experiences, or character. The courtroom scenario served as a microcosm for wider social dynamics, illustrating how easily people can overlook the humanity behind uniformed roles. Moreover, this case calls for a heightened understanding of different life experiences. Maria's revelation as not just a maid, but the owner of the hotel challenges us to question our assumptions about success and authority. Her story serves as an essential reminder that individuals from marginalized backgrounds can possess remarkable capabilities and insights often overshadowed by societal stereotypes. It urges us to recognize that everyone has a unique narrative shaped by distinct experiences, narratives that can enrich our understanding of resilience and hard work in ways we may not have previously considered. The public reaction to Maria's case further emphasizes this point. It is clear that people are hungry for stories that challenge preconceived notions about class and economic status. Outrage over Judge Harris's dismissive comments indicates a collective yearning for change, a desire to dismantle outdated stereotypes and create environments where all individuals are valued equally. Advocacy campaigns born from this incident illuminate how activism can emerge from individual stories, galvanizing larger movements aimed at achieving justice and equity across various sectors. Additionally, conversations sparked by Maria's experience extend into discussions about social mobility for domestic workers and immigrants, highlighting systemic barriers that often hinder progress due to economic disparities. Many individuals in these roles face significant challenges when trying to climb the socioeconomic ladder. They often lack access to education or resources necessary for advancement. By elevating Maria's story, we open up dialogue around these critical issues, advocating for comprehensive reforms that could pave new pathways out of entrenched poverty and limited opportunity. As educational institutions begin incorporating discussions about labor rights into their curricula, there lies an opportunity to foster generations equipped with empathy and understanding toward diverse professions. This cultural shift could ultimately lead to a more equitable society, one where respect for all occupations becomes ingrained in our collective psyche rather than simply an afterthought. Ultimately, Maria's case serves as both a wake-up call and an invitation for introspection. It compels each of us to examine our biases critically. Are we allowing preconceived notions about an individual's profession to cloud our judgment? Are we acknowledging the inherent dignity in every job? It challenges us not only to advocate for justice, but also to engage in self-reflection regarding our perspectives on work and worth. As people continue to rally around stories like Maria's, stories that emphasize empowerment over limitation, the call for change grows louder across communities worldwide. Society stands at a crossroads where it has the power to reshape narratives around work through collective action rooted in respect and understanding. In conclusion, Maria's journey is emblematic of broader struggles faced by many who labor behind the scenes without recognition or appreciation. It illuminates pathways toward growth, not only for those directly involved but also for society as a whole. As we strive toward more inclusive practices within professional landscapes, let us carry forward the lessons gleaned from her experience, that respect knows no occupation, understanding transcends stereotypes, and recognition should be afforded to all who contribute towards building a better world together, one step at a time. By embracing these principles, we pave the way toward a future where dignity is afforded to all workers irrespective of their titles. A future poised on the horizon, waiting patiently, yet resolutely, eager, ready, embracing transformation, poised onward, collective hope firmly ignited, illuminating brighter paths ahead.